If you look at the mat your kid hits on and there are holes worn under the back foot instead of the front, it's telling you your kid has a lower half mechanics problem that's killing their power. And most coaches try to fix lower half power problems. They try to tell kids to like fire their hips or use their legs more, but when kids hear that advice, they can almost never make the correction because there's actually something else going on. So in this video, I'm gonna show you a test that tells you exactly what's causing it and whether it's even something coaching can fix. So here's the first thing I want you to look at. Film your kid from the side and draw a line behind their back foot. And if at contact, the foot goes backwards over that line, they're getting what I call false hip rotation. They're just squishing the bug, which is a popular cue that a lot of coaches use all the time, but it's actually a horrible cue that causes a lot of damage. Because when you watch a pro and you put that same line behind their back foot, the foot comes forward off of the ground, like you see here with Bichette. And almost every pro you watch will get 95 to 100% of their weight into their front foot when they're making contact. They are not staying back like everybody talks about. They are not squishing the bug. They are getting what's called hip extension. But when we screen a kid's swing to see if they're doing this, a lot of them actually can't do it, which is why most hitting mats across the country have holes in the back instead of the front. There's a test for a movement pattern that actually causes this that I'll show you in a second. But first, let me show you the second thing that usually happens if your kid has this problem. Where if you go look at force plate data of elite hitters are putting more force into their lead leg, that front leg, into the ground than others. And they do that through a movement called a lead leg block, where the lead leg is in the act of straightening at contact instead of being in the act of bending at contact like you see this girl do. But here's the problem. All the coaches out there will either tell a kid who's bending their lead leg like this, hey, you're not using your legs. Or they'll tell the kid who has that first problem, hey, you're not using your hips. You have to do both of these movements at the same time. They cannot be taught independently. So I call this double extension, where the back hip is extending forward and it's pulling the rear leg off the ground while the lead leg is blocking and putting force into the ground. And they have to be able to sync up and do this together or it doesn't really work. And while that might sound easy, a lot of kids struggle with this. Like if you watch my daughter here, when we were first trying to fix this with her, this is an exercise where we're testing her to see if she knows how to rotate forward while exploding up through her legs at the same time. But instead, see how she tries to use her legs first and then pushes second? She can't do the two things at the same time. It's pretty crazy. But that's a kid who doesn't know how to sync up these two movements together, so they can't get double extension. And this is usually caused by a known movement problem in kids where they are not good at moving their upper body independently of their lower body. And we have a movement screen for that too, which again, I'll show you here in a second at the end of this video. But once you identify if that's the problem and then you clean it up, you can start to get results like this, where my daughter, once she learned how to rotate while firing her legs at the same time, started to launch balls over the outfielders' heads. But neither of these movements will matter if your kid can't do them from the right position. And that's where the third piece comes in. And this is the one that most coaches completely miss, because if you want all that power to actually translate into being able to drive the ball hard and in the air consistently, especially to the pull side, here's what needs to happen. If you film your hitter from behind and you draw a line over their spine when their front foot lands, and then another one at contact, those two lines should be right on top of each other. But watch one of my other daughters before we fix this, where her spine angle, when her foot lands, and then her spine angle at contact, where she stands up, are not on top of each other. And what happens when kids look like that is it causes them to roll over balls and put them on the ground when they pull the ball. Where if you watch my son, when his front foot lands, his spine's at this angle, and then at contact, it's still at that same angle. And he launches this ball way out of the park. Like this was a no-doubter, because he could maintain what we call the hinged position. And if your kid can't hold this position while they rotate, all that double extension stuff isn't gonna matter, because you won't be able to control the direction that you're sending all that power. So the question is, how can you tell if your kid has enough stability in their hinge pattern to actually be able to pull off this move? So let me show you a test for how to test for this as well. Now, this is a pretty complicated movement and there's a lot of steps to test for, but let me show you the first one that you got to make sure is right before even any of the others make sense. Where what we like to do is something called the PVC hinge test, where what you do is you put your athlete up against some sort of surface with their calves, where their calves are like touching a box or the edge of a bench or something like that. And then you make sure that their heels are directly under, you don't want them underneath the bench, but like directly straight in line with the end of the bench. And then you take a PVC pipe and you have them hold the PVC pipe so it's touching the back of their head, their upper back, and their tailbone. And then tell them to bend their knees and lean forward as far as they can without having the PVC pipe come off of any of those 3 points. And if when you try to do that, your kid is not able to figure it out after like 3 or 4 attempts, they lack motor control in the hinging pattern. So that's what it looks like when they get it wrong, but here's what it looks like if they can do it right, where you can see her brother has no problem bending while maintaining contact on all 3 points. But here's why this is so important. If they can't do a hinge pattern in a super controlled environment like this, without a bat in their hand, doing it slowly, no pitch being thrown at them, no umpire trying to tell them they're gonna strike out, there is 0 chance that they'll be able to maintain that pattern in a game. So that's the first test you want to make sure you run. But remember, the hinge is just one of those 3 movements that we need to screen for, where you still need to screen for motor control issues that are going to cause your kid to struggle with hip extension, with upper body, lower body disassociation, and the ability to control the lead leg block. Because if those movement patterns are broken too, you're still going to bleed out a lot of power. And I've put together a very specific video that walks you through exactly how to screen for each of those movement patterns that you can get step-by-step instructions for how to test for right here.